Are you looking to cover UFC events as a member of the media for the very first time? Well, this video is for you. My name is James Lynch. Before we get into today's topic, make sure you hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit that notification bell. This is a question I get asked all the time. How do you apply for UFC credentials? How do you cover events? We're gonna definitely go over that in today's video. And I actually did a video on this a few years ago, but there's some things that have changed since then, and also the camera work wasn't great. This definitely looks a lot better presentation-wise, so figured we were due for an updated video. But before we get into how you apply for UFC credentials, the one thing I always recommend to people if you are serious about covering an MMA event is go try covering a regional event. Now, I'm showing you here tapology.com/fight center. This is a list of all the upcoming MMA events on the regional scene and the UFC, but I can't stress this enough. I think it's so important to go cover regional cards. A, they need more coverage. B, you're going to get a lot of access that a lot of other people wouldn't. C, you're going to get a lot of content that other people aren't going to get. There aren't a ton of media covering these events on a regular basis. So it's a great experience to learn how the business works, to get good content, to make contacts while you're there networking and all that. And you never know. Sometimes there's UFC fighters at these events as well because they're cornering teammates. So that's the most important thing in this video is make sure if you've never covered an MMA event before as a member of the media, try doing regional MMA first. People ask how you do that. Every promotion for the most part has a Facebook page. Just send a message, or they have a website, send a message. I'm sure you can get in touch with someone about media credentials, but regional MMA needs more coverage. So I would recommend going that route first if you've never covered any MMA events. Okay, let's say you're a bit more of a veteran and you want to go cover a UFC event. This is the website, and I'll have links to all this in the description, access.ufc.com. And this is where you sign up for an account, and it basically makes a profile for you so you don't have to keep filling out the same information every single time. Once you go in there, you sign up, you'll have a profile. It's going to ask you for your outlet, your editor, all these different things. So make sure you have all that ready to go when you click sign up in there. And then once you get access to the UFC media portal, you're going to get a page that looks like this. It shows all the upcoming events, and you request credentials, and then you wait. And I'll say this, the UFC's been a lot better lately, at least from my experience, about getting back to you about credentials, because sometimes you're booking hotels and flights and all this different stuff. I applied, I think, early April to cover UFC 276 in July, and I got my confirmation email just a few weeks after. I've had it before that's 2 weeks to event time, and you find out. So they're pretty good about that. They don't, and let's say there's an event you want to apply for and you don't see it, just keep refreshing the page. Sometimes it takes a little bit for a certain event, very far out for it to be available on this page right here. But you can see here, we're recording this in September. They already have UFC 283 in Rio, Brazil already up there. So they're usually pretty good about that. And this is what the email will look like. I had to take out some stuff on here, but you can see here, your credential request has been approved. This is the type of email you'll get. I had to block out some other stuff, but that's typically what the email will look like in case you guys were wondering. Now, what happens if you don't get approved for a UFC event? Well, there could be a variety of reasons for that. This is how the UFC determines who they're going to let and cover their events. And I will mention the UFC is the hardest MMA promotion to get credentials with. So if you work for a major outlet, and when I mean that, like a major, media outlet. So let's say like a Fox Sports or something that's mainstream. Like if you work for a television network or you work for a newspaper or a radio station, you're going to have a better chance than, say, if you just have a regular YouTube channel. There's very few YouTube channels that get approved for credentials. There's very few websites that get approved for credentials unless they're major websites. So just keep that in mind before applying, that you need to be working for a pretty big outlet to get approved. For the most part, it seems from my experience that the UFC cares more about the outlet as opposed to who's covering the event, although I'm sure it helps if you've been at events before. But that's just one thing to keep in mind, that if you're going to apply, you got to be working for an outlet that's pretty legit. And I can answer more of this later after the video in the comments if you guys have any more questions about that. So let's say you apply for a UFC event and you get denied. I would go to Bellator. One of the great things about Bellator, and again, here's the link there, and I will have the link to this in the description, is Bellator will pretty much take anyone. They're very lenient with that. That's one of the things I love about Bellator. And Bellator, even though the pandemic is pretty much over, they are still doing virtual media events. So even if you're at home and you want some experience, I would recommend signing up for the Bellator Zoom calls like they have here. They're still doing that. The UFC is not, but Bellator is. So that's a big bonus right there. So again, same thing, credentials. You click there on credentials, and it's going to show you all their events, and you can register now. And this, for the most part, you will get approved. I've rarely seen people get denied for Bellator credentials. And that's like a big thing. So yeah, I would recommend as well. Like I said, if you can't do regional, Bellator is a good one to do as well. Even just starting on the Zoom calls and just getting that experience of asking questions and all that. It's very beneficial if you're just looking to start out. Now, a couple little housekeeping things as far as going to events. Some quick tips I would recommend. Number one, when you get to the event, make sure you be friendly, introduce yourself to the other media members, because it's just going to make that experience so much easier for you if you have people who you can go to if you have any questions, because maybe the PR person who's at the event might not be able to help you. Number two, make sure you dress the part. I'm wearing a golf shirt here today. Most places will accept that, but just it's better to dress up than dress down. I see some people trying to go to events with a t-shirt or hat or shorts. That's not going to fly. You want to look like you're a media member. You do not want to look like you're a fan. Speaking of being a fan, do not take pictures with fighters at events. It's a big no-no in this industry. I know a lot of us are, we're all fans when it comes down to it, but do not take photos with fighters. It's a bad look. A lot of the other media will not respect you. You're supposed to be unbiased when it comes to covering events. And if you're taking a photo with a fighter, that looks pretty biased. So just remember, keep it professional. And my final thing is make sure you're actually doing some work. I have seen people at events, not at UFC events, well, even at some UFC events as well, who don't do anything. They just, maybe they'll ask a couple press conference questions, but they don't do much. That stuff will irk other media members, because a lot of media members who are covering these UFC events and Bellator events have worked very hard to get to where they're at, and to see someone get approved and not doing any work, it's very frustrating. So just make sure you're there. If you're going to do video content, make sure you have the right equipment, make sure you double check all your equipment before you go, and also make sure that you, again, ask the right questions. Just be professional, I think, is the biggest thing I'm trying to emphasize when you're covering these events. So hopefully I summed up everything you need in a bit of a shorter video here today. If you guys do have any questions, I'm available. Twitter, Instagram, my DMs are open. I'm more happy to help you. Or if you just want to comment on this video, I'm more than happy to steer you in the right direction. Just so you guys know, I've covered 25 plus UFC events. I've covered a number of Bellator events and a number of regional events as well. So I've been through the trenches. I can tell you guys, give you some good advice if you guys are looking to cover an event for the very first time. One last time, make sure you hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit that notification bell. My name is James Lynch. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you soon.